Independent Writer Podcast, Episode 1, So You Want to Be a Writer. Welcome to the Independent Writer Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Medina. I'd like to thank you for joining us today. We're going to talk about getting started as a writer. You've decided that you wanted to write, so time to get started writing. Now that you've wanted to get started writing, we're going to talk about 6 things you can do to jumpstart your writing. These are pretty simple, but they're great ways to get started writing and expand your future as a writer. Before we do that, just wanted to throw out there that you can always reach me at my website, www.independentwriterpodcast.com, on Twitter and Instagram as IndieWriterPod, and personally, you can reach me on Twitter at RyanMedinaX. As we move on with the podcast, we will be going into each of these things I talk about today in greater depth. I will do a deep dive on a lot of these topics for more depth, but we're just going to cover an overview of all the things that you could do to start out as a writer just to get things jump-started. So let's jump into the 6 things that you can do to get your writing going. First thing you can do is just start writing. Then once you start writing, make a commitment to write regularly. Regular writing is important. Next thing you can do is study writing craft. The craft of writing is very important. Next thing you can do, make writer friends and write with them. Then get involved with the writing community. Writing community is a great resource for learning how to write and motivating yourself to write. And last but not least is you have to read. You can't be a writer if you don't read. All right, we're going to dive into the first thing to do, and that is to start writing. First, find the medium you enjoy to write in. Do you like to write with a pen and paper, or do you write on a computer? It really is entirely up to you. I mean, I do most of my writing on the computer now, but there are times I'll sit down and write things on paper because there is nothing quite like connecting a pen to paper and just writing down what comes to you. Writing is definitely a mental activity, but it's also a physical activity. And the act of connecting a pen to a piece of paper and writing your thoughts or feelings out is really a great way to start to get the writing feeling and start to let your mind and body know, okay, I'm a writer. Which leads me to my next point is a great way to start writing something is writing a journal. Just a personal journal that you keep about your day. Sit down, write out what happened today. It's a great way to share your feelings, kind of clear your mind, unload what got you down yesterday, today. And it allows you to start practicing expressing yourself. You have a lot that's going on in your life and you want to get that off your chest. So you can do that by journaling. And then by journaling, you can practice sharing feelings and thoughts and really getting ideas out there of what you're doing. I mean, you live your day, why not write it down and express it in a writing sort of a way to say, this is what happened to me, this is how I felt. It just lets you practice all of those things you need to do as a writer. Since you lived it, it's fresh in your mind. You did it today. How did somebody make you feel? Write about that. Share those emotions. Find different ways to express how that made you feel. And then it allows you to start getting into the writing habit. Then, now that you have the writing habit of doing your journal every day, you can expand upon that. One of the great ways you can expand upon that is doing writing prompts. There are writing prompts available all over the internet. You can find them on Pinterest. You can find them on Instagram. You can Google them. They're everywhere. And it's just a little thing that gives you something to write about, like describe the scariest thing that happened to you as a child. And then you can sit there and write it out. Again, you're drawing on your life experiences to practice the writing craft. And by drawing on life experiences, it allows you to not have to dive so deep into thinking up something new. Plus, the writing prompts give you an idea of something that you might not have thought of. I know personally, I've seen writing prompts that have really sparked an idea for a story for me, and I was able to sit down, start the writing prompt, and actually turn it into a short story. That's the beauty of writing prompts. I mean, it's not so much inspiration, it's just freeing your mind up of the pressure of finding something to write about when you see an idea that's not your own, but you're like, you know what? I can expand on that. So that's the beauty of writing prompts. And there's also dialogue prompts where it starts off with a code of dialogue that says like, well, I didn't expect my day to start like this. And then it's up to you to fill in the rest of the story. And it's going to be your story. Everybody's story is different. Everybody's thought process. I mean, 100 people could start with the same writing prompt and you're going to get 100 different stories. Maybe there's some similarities, maybe there's not. You never know. It all just depends on who the writer is and what they're drawing on. And that's the beauty of writing, is that this comes all from internally of the writer, and they can take it any direction that inspires them. And I already touched upon this, but I think the last thing that you could do is start writing short stories. Don't saddle yourself with, okay, I have the next great novel idea. I'm going to sit down and write a 7-book series. You're setting yourself up for failure because you just don't have the tools to write something of that scope yet. It's going to take some practice. You're going to want to get back into writing if you haven't been doing it for a long time. So maybe start by writing a short story. Say, I'm going to write a 2-page short story of 1,000 words and sit down and write that. And then when you write the short story, you have something to start with. Maybe that short story turns into a longer story. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it gives you an idea for a better story. But the idea is a short story gives you something to write, a small, short purpose without overwhelming yourself with all the great details that go into writing a novel. So by writing little things first, you're just giving yourself the tools to be able to write bigger and bigger things. And I think that's the most important thing you can do when you're starting out writing again, is just to get yourself into a groove of being able to write something, getting the ideas flowing, putting pen to paper, putting your fingers to the keyboard and typing something out. That's what it's all about, is just getting that writing going. And once the writing is going, you can move on and really start to expand on your writing. So that's my next point is if you're going to expand on your writing, you need to make a commitment to writing. There's a big misconception that writing comes from some sort of inspired muse, that you need to be inspired. You have to have that magic inspiration to write a good story. While some of that's true, you might see something that gives you a good idea, but that's not going to last with you forever. So what you need to do is take that inspiration and turn it into a good writing habit. There are going to be days when you feel absolutely the opposite of inspired. You're going to feel down, tired, depressed, whatever feeling you have that says, I don't want to write today, you're going to have to write. So that's going to be your biggest thing, is to make a habit of writing, because that's the way you get to be a better writer. It's just like any other job, and I'm sorry to say that writing will become a job of sorts. If you think about any job you've worked in, the first few days, weeks, months, you feel lost. You're not sure what you're doing. You do the little things that are easier, and every day you get to do more and more things as you learn it. Writing's no different than any other job. Make the commitment. Show up every day, do the job, and you will get better. And by doing that, you can expand on your writing, like setting a writing time. I'm going to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and write. Many writers like to be part of the 5 a.m. Writers Club. I am not a morning person. I am more of a night person. I prefer to write late at night, after my family goes to sleep. It's quiet. Nothing's going on. No one's going to disturb me, and I can get my writing done. But whatever works for you, whether it's 5 a.m., 5 p.m., 10 p.m., make a commitment to write at the same time. That way your body and brain know, oh, hey, it's writing time. Let's start writing. And trust me, it will work. It will help build that habit of writing that, I need to write. And if you don't do it, it's just like going to the gym. You get used to going to the gym every day. When you miss a day at the gym, you feel bad about it. Same thing will happen with writing if you make that kind of commitment. Along with making the commitment is you need to find a dedicated place to write. Find a nice, quiet spot that works for you. Develop a routine. You're dedicated to writing 5 days a week. You're dedicated to writing at 5 a.m. every day or for those 5 days, and you're going to go sit at the kitchen table, or you're going to sit in an office at a desk, or you're going to sit on the couch. Wherever works best for you that you're most comfortable with. I'm not going to say that you have to have a desk and sit straight up at a desk and all that. Sometimes that just doesn't work. Not all writers like to write sitting at a desk. Some writers like to write in their bed. Whatever works for you. Just make a commitment to do that. Again, it's about creating the habit of writing, not so much about how you get it done. And once you start writing, you need to recognize that you're not going to write well. Make the commitment to write no matter how bad it is. You're going to do all the worst things there are about writing. You're going to tell, not show. That's going to be a big one you'll hear as you progress as a writer is you're telling, you're not showing. Well, who cares? Tell it as best as you can and you'll fix it later. That's the best part about writing is it doesn't have to be perfect the first time. You have many, many chances to go back and fix it. So the basic thing is allow yourself to suck. Don't be hard on yourself. Recognize that you're probably going to suck. I still suck frequently when I write. That's okay. I know I can go back and fix it. But if you don't write, you can't fix it. There's an old saying, you can't fix a blank page. So get out there, keep writing, and do it some justice. Do yourself a solid by making sure you show up every day that you've dedicated to writing and write something. Maybe you write 100 words, maybe you write 1,000 words. It doesn't matter. Just show up and write. And at the end of the day, you'll have something to show for it. And that leads me to my last point about writing commitments is that you have to write when you don't feel like writing. That is the key. There will be days where you absolutely don't feel like writing. But if you really want to be a writer, you're going to have to dedicate yourself and write, even when you hate it, even when you know it's trash. It doesn't matter. Just keep writing. The next thing you need to do as a writer is start studying the craft of writing. Writing craft is something I didn't even know existed when I first reintroduced myself to the writing world. I had decided that I wanted to write, so I thought I just had to sit down, think of a good story idea, and just write until it was done, which is probably the worst thing I could have ever done, because usually what happened is I'd write 2 or 3 chapters and not know where to go next or what to do next, and I'd get discouraged and quit. I made all the classic writing mistakes, which as you start to study the writing craft world, you'll learn things not to do, like, oh, I need my character to describe themselves to the reader. So he's going to go up to the mirror and comb his hair and think about, look at my beautiful brown hair and that it's parted on the right. Oh, don't I look wonderful? For God's sakes, whatever you do, don't describe your character in the mirror. Other things that don't have them wake up in bed at the first page of the story. Another terrible thing to do. I actually made that mistake a couple times myself. Both of those I did. Once I started learning writing craft, I discovered that there's ways to make your story go. Like, I didn't know that outlining was a thing. I didn't know that writers actually planned out their whole story from start to finish on some level before they even started writing the first chapter. I mean, I was blown away. Like, I felt like I was introduced to a whole new world. I found out that certain genres have certain cliches that are very popular. And, to name one, if you think about YA or young adult fiction like Twilight, is the love triangle. That pops up a lot in YA fiction. And so, you might want to think about including that because that's popular with the readers. Other readers are turned off by it. You're just going to have to decide what works for you. And again, there's no set formula. There's different ways to develop your story. There's the 3-act structure. There's the story beats. There's the plot circle. There's a story embryo. I mean, there are hundreds of different ways to write a story, but you're going to have to get out there. You're going to have to study them and figure out what works best for you. And a good way to do that is to read craft books. One of the most popular craft books floating around right now is Save the cat writes a novel. It's based on the old adage of how do you write a good story? Take a cat, chase it up the tree, throw rocks at it until it figures out how to get down. Basically it's saying take someone, put them in a situation, make it as bad as you can until you get to the end when they figure out how to beat that situation. So The Save the Cat Writes a Novel by Jessica Brody is a fantastic craft book. It's a good one to start with. It gives a lot of insight of different types of stories to write and whatnot. And I'm not getting paid to promote the book. I personally am using that book a lot these days, and many other writers are. I just use that one as an example because it's popular today. But many writers have written many craft books. Some of them you can find online in the writing community. Many writers put together their own little writing style books that you can download if you sign up for their email or whatever. So go out there and see what you can find and study the writing craft and take notes, try different stories out. You can write a short story and do some of these storycraft ideas and see what works for you. And once you figure out the one that really resonates with you, then expand upon it. Start to use it more and really hone that style of planning for your novel. Now, I'm not saying you have to write out every little thing in detail. There are many writers out there, including Stephen King, who are what you call a pantser. They write by the seat of their pants. They don't do lots of planning. But again, he has an idea of what he wants to write. He has a few things he thinks of, probably takes a few notes that this is what I want to write about. You don't have to have a detailed plan. Lots of writers like to discover where they want to go, but they have a damn good idea who their characters are and what their goals are before they start writing. And that's what you need to learn how to do. Is you need to learn how to create characters that have problems, that have goals, and how to make those happen, how to get from point A to point B, and how are you going to make it hell for them to get there. Because that's what makes a compelling story. So you need to learn the craft, because till you learn the craft, your stories are just going to be okay. But by learning the craft, studying it, revising it, tweaking it, your stories will get better and better, and pretty soon you'll have a pretty good story to read. All right, that brings me to my next point of what it takes to be a writer is having writing friends. Bet you didn't know that you needed friends as a writer. It's really not the old standard of you're locked in a room by yourself, scribbling on the paper, sweating out blood while you get words on the page. It's really not like that at all anymore. Writing is very much a communal activity, and having friends that also write will empower you to write better, will empower you to write more. Writing friends make it more exciting. If you have someone that's writing with you, it keeps you motivated. It's a motivating thing. Writer friends will push you to write when you don't write. You'll push them when they don't write. And when you both achieve it, then you both feel good. That's a critical part of the writing community, is supporting other writers. You're going to need support. They need support. So why not support each other and write together? And I'm not saying physically sit in the same location and write. I mean, there are many online writing activities that are hosted on YouTube and other places that are just a writing sprint to get together that says, okay, everybody, let's write as many words as we can in the next 15 minutes. And these writers will sit down and everybody will write whatever it is they're writing. And then at the end of the 15 minutes, everybody will say, well, I wrote 100 words, or I wrote 200 words. And you'll get that one crazy writer who writes like 2,000 words in 15 minutes. I can't do that. I don't know who can, but it happens. And the bonus of this is when you're writing with people and you're sharing what you're doing, it's going to make you a better writer, because you're dedicated to it. You want to write the best. As you build these friendships, eventually you're going to want to share what you're writing with other people. I mean, that's the point of writing is you're going to write it, and eventually you're going to have to turn it out to the world. Who better to turn it out to than people that you've built trust and a relationship that they're going to give you an honest opinion, but they're also going to not totally eviscerate your writing because it's terrible. They're going to understand that it isn't going to be great at this stage, but they're going to help you make it better. And that's the other important part about having writer friends is they're going to lift you up. They're going to empower you to write better. They're going to point out the good things. You're going to think you're terrible, and it's going to feel terrible. But remember, you are toiling and writing and rewriting, and you're in the trenches. And a writer friend's going to have a little bit of fresh perspective. They're not going to be as critical of you as you are of yourself. We are always our own worst critic. So Let your writer friends read your writing, let them give you some feedback, and in the end, it will make you a better writer. And last but very much not the least is when you get lost in writing, and everybody gets lost in writing every once in a while, writer friends will help you find your way back to writing. You're going to be at a point where you're just like, I haven't written in days, weeks, months. It happens to all writers. Even the best writers have times where they can't seem to write. Your writing friends will help bring you back to writing when you interact with them and you find out about their latest writing project and you get excited for them. That excitement will bleed into what you're doing and it'll get you back into writing. So having writer friends is important because it keeps you going when you don't want to go. All right, next we're going to talk about getting involved with the writing community. And this is kind of an extension of having writing friends. How do I find writing friends? Well, here's how you do it. First thing you can do is get involved with a local writing community at your local library. I know some of the local libraries around where I live have writing groups that get together weekly, bi-weekly, whatever works for them, and they get together, they read each other's writing, they encourage each other, maybe they have writing sessions together. It's great when you can connect with people you can actually sit down in the same room with. Again, it doesn't mean you're collaborating with them on the writing. It just means you're supporting each other. And like anything in life, when you're doing it with other people, it always helps motivate just a little bit more. So check your library. Ask the librarians, maybe search online. Go to your local community Facebook groups and see if there's anything out there. You'd be surprised. There are writers hiding everywhere, so don't be afraid to go out and look for them. If you live in a place where it's not easy to go to a library or find something, maybe you just don't have anything in your area, there is a huge online writing community. I am very involved with the online writing community. You can always find me out there talking, interacting, supporting other writers. It's hugely important. I have made so many great writing friends who, in the future will be assisting me with the podcast, doing interviews and giving their insights and feedback because I want to share other people's views, not just my own. So that's the great thing about writing community. They will help you so much. And it will help you grow more than you know. Again, it's all about growing your ability and making yourself a better writer. So now you're asking, Ryan, how do I find this online writer community? I don't know where to look. Well, that's the beauty of hashtags. The writing community has developed their own language of getting themselves out there, and you can look for hashtag writing community, hashtag am writing, hashtag writing, writers, you'll figure it out. I mean, if you check writing community, that's probably a good place to start. You can see other hashtags that are used. So go on to Twitter and search the writing community. Go on to Instagram and search writing community. Instagram has writers of Instagram and writing community of Instagram. When you go out and search those, you can start following those hashtags and see the people out there who are really contributing to the online writing community. Start to follow them. Start to interact with them. Be friendly. Introduce yourself. Say, I'm new in the writing community and I wanted to introduce myself. I promise you people will reach out to you and they'll start helping you because in my experience, the writing community wants to help other writers. It's not a competition. We're all in this together. We all want to make each other better. So another place that you can really get great writing help and advice is the AuthorTube community on YouTube. There are many authors and writers out there who have YouTube channels that will go through different things about writing, their own personal writing journeys, their writing styles, things to help you out, 10 things to avoid, any sort of thing you have a question about writing. There is a YouTube video out there for you. And there are many great YouTubers out there that I have connected with that have helped me grow as a writer by leaps and bounds. And that was probably the biggest eye-opener for me is as a person in my 40s, I wasn't much of a YouTube person. I mean, that was something my teenage daughter did. That was for the kids. But I finally broke down one day and started searching on YouTube for writing advice. And it opened my eyes to so many things that I didn't know about writing. I just thought writing was sitting down with a pen and paper and writing till the story was done. You're just going to have to grind it out. But it's really not as much like that as you think it is. So get out there and get involved with the writing community. The wonderful people out there will help you become a better writer. And they give so freely of themselves. Just go out there, be polite. Don't demand anything. Don't expect them to give you anything. Just go out there, see what they give, thank them, be polite. If you're watching their YouTubes, like their videos, comment on them, get involved. If they're posting on Instagram or Twitter, then go out there and do that. It's important. And it will help you grow, and they will help you grow. And then the last thing is get involved with anything you can find going on with the writing community, especially online. I have lots of writer friends who run different collaborative writing things. I have writer friends who run group writing sprint nights. Once or twice a month they'll have a writing sprint night that says, hey, at 7 o'clock Eastern time, we're all going to get together on my YouTube channel and write. And, you can write together. It's, again, you're not working together on what you're doing, but it's a good way to get some camaraderie and companionship in the writing process so that you don't feel like you're alone. Everybody's online, but you're interacting. Maybe they're throwing out some ideas and you're working together and everybody's cheering each other on with their word counts. It really makes a difference. So don't sell yourself short and get out there and get involved. And the last point I wanted to make for this podcast is probably the most important thing about writing that isn't writing, and that's reading books. If you're not a reader, you can't be a writer. I mean, there's a famous quote by Stephen King from his book on writing. If you're not a reader, then you absolutely do not have the tools you need to be writing. Get out there and read some books. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Read what you like. I'm not saying you have to go out there and read War and Peace and all the classics. Writing isn't really like that anymore. Find writers in a genre that you want to write in. Read how they write. Start to learn how they put their books together. Study the writing. Again, writing is about learning and writing and studying the craft of writing. When you read books as a writer, you're going to start reading them critically. You're going to study how this writer ups the suspense. How do they raise questions? How do they keep you turning the pages? Read it critically. Read it as a writer. See how they do things. See what makes their story good. What do they do that you like? And then read another author that writes a similar book and compare and contrast their styles. See how they do. Maybe even take some notes about what you liked or didn't like. You can use reading books for enjoyment, but also use it to improve your writing skills. I read a lot of books by other independent writers because I want to see what kind of things they're reading. Plus, it supports them. Again, by reading books written by authors that you support in the writing community, you're supporting each other. And, there's no better compliment to a writer than to say, I read your book and I really loved it. It's critical to read. It's critical to support people. And you need to have those tools to make yourself a better writer. Those are my 6 things that you can do to get yourself going and involved with writing, the writing community, creating a writer life for yourself. So just to review, make a commitment to writing. Remember that writing is hard work, that when you make that commitment, you're going to have to work at it every day, all the time, and stick to that commitment. Remember that as a writer, it's not a solitary, lonely thing. You can engage with the writing community. They can teach you things you didn't know. Remember that as a writer, you're going to learn every day, and all writers are always learning something new. So get out there, engage, learn, write whatever works for you, and try different things. Everybody writes a different way. No 2 writers are the same. It's a creative endeavor, so you have to find the creative path that works best for you. Last but not least, remember, if you're going to write, you got to read. So get out there and start reading some books. Find some writers in the indie writing community and start reading their books. That's a great way to learn how to be a writer. Well, thank you for listening. And just remember that you can find me at my website at independentwriterpodcast.com, on social media as Indie Writer Pod, on both Twitter and Instagram. And you can find me personally on Twitter as Ryan Medina X and on Instagram as Ryan Medina Writes. If you really want to help yourself, be sure to check out my website. I'll have some writing prompts out there that you can print off and give it a try, and maybe it'll help make you a better writer. Thank you, and I hope you join me again for my next podcast when we dive deeper into what it takes to be a writer.